We are less than 50 days away from the greatest 2 minutes in sports, the 151st running of the Kentucky Derby. And to get into the Kentucky Derby, a horse must qualify in the Derby prep races and get those coveted Kentucky Derby points. And as of today, we are done with all the qualifying races under 100 points. So I'm going to take you through my top 10 that I believe could have the heart, the speed, and the stamina to be the winner of the 151st running of the Kentucky Derby. I want to talk about the strength of the prep races we have seen so far. And here's a little schematic of the way that I view the strength of the races. Now, I know this may look complicated, so just give me a second to explain what I've done here. I believe we need to look at the prep races in terms of both speed and contention. We know Derby winners have a lot of speed. And we know that in a 20-horse field, they're going to have to fight traffic, they're going to have to battle other horses. And so these are the two dimensions that I like to look at the prep races on. For speed, I took the top buyer of the winner and the top buyer of the show horse, because I believe if the win, place, and show had really strong buyers, that overall prep race had to have really good speed. For contention, I also looked at two factors. One is the number of horses that were in the race. Again, are they maneuvering in and out of traffic? Second is how much did the winner win by? Because if the winner won by a nose, that means they were dueling it out on the stretch. So number of horses and how much did they win by? Now, the way you read this is the lower scores, the better. Now, let me take you through a couple just as an example. Let's look at the Lecomte for a second. The Lecomte was the most contentious with 13 horses and Disco Time winning by a neck. But the speed ratings were not so great. Disco Time had a 77 buyer, and the show horse Innovator also had a 77 buyer. Opposite is the Risen Star, for example. They had some of the best speed, with Magnitude having this amazing buyer of 108 and Built with 92. He was the show horse. There were 12 horses in that race, which would say it was contentious, but Magnitude won by 9 3/4 lengths. Now, that is not to say that you can't find a really good horse coming out of the Lecomte or Risen Star, or that they're poor Kentucky Derby prep races. This is just my method to gauge the strength of the races against one another. And really, it's just one method to do so. So based on my method, the top 7 Kentucky Derby prep races that I saw were number 1 is the Rebel, number 2 is the Southwest. Both of those are in Oaklawn. Number 3 is the Withers. Number 4, the Gotham, although I am going to discount that a bit because it's a mile. Number 5 is the San Felipe. Number 6 is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and number 7 is the Fountain of Youth. Now, there were some races very early on in 2024 that had a lot of good strength, and that would be the Iroquois, the Kentucky Jockey Club, and the Champagne. My number 1 horse is Journalism, trained by Michael McCarthy. Now, this horse has 2 graded stakes wins. He was in the G2 Los Alamitos Futurity and in the G2 San Felipe. Now, the races out west, what I want you to pay attention to is they've been super fast, producing some of the best buyers that we've seen. However, the fields, small. Both those races only had 5 horses in them, and that's something for you to pay attention to. Now, the Los Alamitos Futurity, I would say who he ran against was kind of questionable. Getaway Car was just in the Virginia Derby, clear favorite, and came in fourth. And Gaming has been regressing in speed ever since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. But in the San Felipe, Journalism had to battle an amazing horse in Barnes. And in that race, he was very patient. He sat outside of Barnes, stalked him. Barnes actually got ahead by 3 lengths in the stretch, and Journalism found another gear and sailed past him like Barnes was standing still. And that effort got him the best buyer that we've seen out of all the horses in contention for the Derby at 108. I like he has the 2 graded stakes wins. I like that his buyer is improving. You always want to see improvement in these horses. You don't want them to reach their top now. You want them to reach their top on the first Saturday in May. And can he go the extra distance? He's only gone a mile and a 16th, so he hasn't even been tested at a mile and an 1/8 yet. Well, he's by Curlin. Curlin came in 3rd in the Derby, won the Preakness, and 2nd in the Belmont. Most likely, Journalism is going to show up in the Santa Anita Derby. Second on my list is Barnes, and Barnes is trained by Bob Baffert. Say that 10 times fast. Barnes is trained by Bob Baffert. He is a $3.2 million purchase. That's insane. He's not only a $3.2 million purchase, Bob Baffert named him after his longtime assistant, Jimmy Barnes. You didn't see Barnes in that top 25 list, but this horse has what it takes to get to the Kentucky Derby. When he battled journalism, he got 105 buyer. Now, journalism and Barnes is the only horse to get triple-digit buyers outside of Magnitude, and unfortunately, Magnitude is not going to be participating in the road to the Kentucky Derby due to a bone chip. Barnes has 2 graded stakes wins and is improving in his buyers, which we like to see. Now, we already mentioned Barnes was in the G2 San Felipe against journalism, where he got that 105 buyer. But prior to that, he was in the G2 San Vicente. And in that race, you could tell the jockey was holding him back. When he got to the stretch, bam, he wins by 5 and gets a 93 buyer. Now, he is by Into Mischief out of American Pharaoh Mare. That's an unbelievable mix, and I would think he could get the extra distance. Now, we know Bob Baffert has been sitting out of the Derby for the last 3 years due to his suspension, and he's coming back with a stable. He wants that Kentucky Derby win, and he's got his eye on Barnes and another horse in my top 10 to get him there. And that's the number 3 horse, Citizen Bull. Citizen Bull won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile race, and that was on my top 7 of strong Kentucky Derby prep races. And in that race, he earned a 96 buyer. Now, I've heard a lot of pundits talk about that race and how it wasn't strong that day, but Citizen Bull was my pick that day due to his strong workouts. I mean, he went to the lead, he shook off gaming like gaming wasn't even there, and he wins. The other thing I want you to note is this is a really interesting stat. Even though I said the Breeders' Cup Juvenile was a really strong race, how many horses have won in the last 10 years the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and then the Kentucky Derby? Well, you have to go back all the way to 2016 to Nyquist. So take that for what it's worth. He has 4 graded stakes entries and 3 wins. In the G1 Del Mar Futurity, he was 3rd and got a 70 buyer. Then he goes to the G1 American Pharaoh, wins that race, 88 buyer. Then, as we mentioned, he went in to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile race, wins that race, 96 buyer. Then, the last time we saw him was in the Robert B. Lewis at a mile. He wins that race with a 98 buyer. In the Robert B. Lewis, he bobbled at the gate. He recovered quickly. He was in command. He saw his rivals and he challenged them. And he wins by 3 over the other Bob Baffert trainees of Madacat Road and Rodriguez. The one thing I question is, why put him in a mile race? And why break him down in class when you send Barnes to a longer distance race and a G2? Now, where is he going to show up next? It looks like he's going to challenge journalism in the Santa Anita Derby. Now, when you look at the points, he may not need any more points to get into the starting gate, whereas Barnes needs points to get into the starting gate. Can Citizen Bull get that extra distance? Well, his sire is Into Mischief, and Into Mischief keeps showing up as a sire of Contenders for the Kentucky Derby. He's the sire of Barnes and the sire of Sovereignty. Also, he's an Into Mischief with a distorted humor mare cross, and that cross is showing up in other contenders as well, like Tappan Street. It looks like Citizen Bull is a real contender, and Bob Baffert is coming. He's coming hopefully with Barnes and also with Citizen Bull. Speaking of Sovereignty, the number 4 horse on my list is Sovereignty, and he is trained by Bill Mott. Now, this is your Fountain of Youth winner, and the Fountain of Youth was on my list of strong Kentucky Derby prep races. This horse had to battle to get to the lead. He was way in the back, had a short stretch, so going against him. River Thames looked like he was sailing to the lead, but Sovereignty said, oh, no, and just surged at the end and won by a neck. Now, he has 2 graded stakes wins. Not only did he win the G2 Fountain of Youth, coming way off the pace and having that monster rally to get the 95 buyer, He also announced himself in the G3 Street Sense, a mile and a 16th. Where? At Churchill Downs. That's important. He has a win on the Churchill Downs track. And in that race, he was off a step slow. He was dead last. Monster rally and wins with an 87 buyer. And who did he beat that day? Sandman and Tistastic, also on the Kentucky Derby trail and have proven themselves in the Southwest and Rebel, two very strong Kentucky Derby prep races. This horse has a ginormous stride, and let's talk about his breeding, because his breeding is unbelievable. He's by Into Mischief. Into Mischief has produced Kentucky Derby winners like Authentic and Mandaloon. His dam is Crowned. Crowned is by Bernardini, a top router, and her dam was Mushka, who won the Demoiselle going a mile and an eighth. This horse has a pedigree that just screams Kentucky Derby. Where is he going to show up next? Looks like he's going to be going into the Florida Derby. The number 5 horse is American Promise, trained by D Wayne Lukas. Now, this horse just set a track record at the Virginia Derby going a mile and an eighth. I get the track was fast that day, but still, he has a track record and a 95 buyer going a mile and an eighth. Now, I'm a little biased with American Promise. One of my favorite horses ever is Justify. In fact, I'm wearing a Justify necklace, and he is a $750,000 purchase by Justify. And we know Justify didn't just win the Kentucky Derby, he won the Triple Crown. So you have a fantastic sire, you have a Hall of Fame trainer in D Wayne Lukas, you just set a track record. Of course, you're making my list of top 10. Prior to that race, he was also in another mile and an eighth race, and so he has distance experience. He was in the G2 Risen Star at the fairgrounds, and in that race, it wasn't so great for him. He finished 5th, but he earned an 88 buyer. He also participated in the Southwest, one of my strongest Kentucky Derby prep races. And in that race, he was off a bit slow, and he had to chase to get to Speed King. This horse likes to be on or near the lead, and he was like, I'm going to the lead. And so he had to exert a lot of energy to get up to Speed King. Now, he put the pressure on Speed King, and then he began to lose ground, and he kind of went over to the rail, got into 6th position, but then disqualified and finished 7th. But I say put all that away, because what you have to know is what he just did in the Virginia Derby. And you have to know he's a very young 3-year-old. He was born in May. He needed a little bit more time to mature. I think this horse has a bright future in the Kentucky Derby. The number 6 horse on my list is Coal Battle, and this is just a horse and a trainer you want to root for. He is trained by Lonnie Briley, who is 72 years young, and he never thought he would have a horse in the Kentucky Derby. Prior to Coal Battle, he only had 2 horses in 2 graded stakes races ever. And Coal Battle has won all of his Kentucky Derby prep races. He's a $70,000 purchase by Coal Front. Now, it looks like he's going to be going into the Arkansas Derby. I mean, these are the types of stories that Kentucky Derby dreams are made of, and it's just a horse we want to root for. Coal Battle won the strongest prep race on my list, the Rebel. In a field of 13, he was very patient. He sat 4th or 5th, and when it came time, he made his move. And what a show-stopping move it was. He caught up to Bob Baffert's Madacat Road and won by a length and a 4th. Now, it only earned him a 91 buyer, but this horse has tenacity and grit and heart and just keeps winning and winning. Prior to that, he won the Smarty Jones by 4 lengths going gate to wire. Then, prior to that, in the Remington Springboard Mile, he won over Speed King. He put the pressure on Speed King. Speed King won one of my top Derby prep races, the Southwest. And in that race, he earned an 84 buyer. He is battle tested. He's a smart horse. He's patient. He's versatile. He could go gate to wire. He could be mid-pack. He can win off the pace. This is an unbelievable horse, and I can't wait to see him get into the Kentucky Derby starting gates. The number 7 horse is Chancer McPatrick, trained by Chad Brown. Now, he just exited the Tampa Bay Derby 2nd to Owen Almighty, who went gate to wire, and he only got an 88 buyer. So why is he on my list? Well, he has an excuse in that he just started training in January, the end of January, for that race. So he might not have been fully prepped for the race, and I just can't wait to see what he does next. He was one of our top juveniles in 2024. In the G1 Hopeful in Saratoga, he had trouble. He hit the gate. His jockey loses his foot in his irons. He's way in the back, but somehow he manages through that trouble and gets up and wins the race. Then he goes to the Champagne. The Champagne is on my list. And in that race, again, troubled start, goes wide, rallies, and wins. So if a horse could get out of trouble, it's Chancer McPatrick. And we know in the Kentucky Derby, there could be a lot of trouble. Then he went into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. That was a very disappointing race, and he finished 6th. But coming out of that race, they realized that he needed to have a flake removed out of his ankle, and he had a quarter crack in his hind foot that needed to be repaired. And that's why he didn't start working out until the end of January and may not have been fully prepped for the Tampa Bay Derby. The number 8 horse on my list is River Thames. He's trained by Todd Pletcher. The last time we saw him was in the Fountain of Youth, and that race is on my list of top Kentucky Derby prep races. In that race, we thought he was clear for home. I mean, he was singing his way to the winner's circle, but Sovereignty said nope and stole the show. But he didn't disappoint. He got a 95 buyer coming out of that race. His prior 2 races, he won by 4, 5, 6 lengths. And in all 3 races, he earned buyers in the 90. Now, this is a horse that has a lot of heart and a lot of speed. Where is he going to show up next? Well, it looks like possibly the Bluegrass. Can he get the extra distance? He's by McLean's Music, and McLean's Music gave us Cloud Computing, who won the Preakness. 9th on my list is Sandman. Sandman is trained by Mark Casse, and he's by Tappet, a $1.2 million purchase by Tappet. And we know Tappets can get the distance, but they need a little bit more time to mature. Now, Sandman has a superpower, and his superpower is late speed. 4 graded stakes entries with 1 place and 2 shows. He was in the G3 Iroquois in September, came in 5th. Then he goes to the G3 Street Sense, off a bit slow, but manages to get 3rd. Then he goes to the Southwest. And remember, the Southwest is one of the top prep races on my list. And that's a race I want you to watch because that was so impressive. He stumbled so poorly at the start. He was 9th. He manages to rally and get to 2nd and gets a 92 buyer. Then he goes to the Rebel. Again, a top prep race on my list. And in that race, he comes in 3rd. So where is Sandman most likely to go next? The Arkansas Derby. The 10th horse on my list is Captain Cook. Captain Cook is trained by Rick Dutrow, and Rick Dutrow won the Kentucky Derby with Big Brown. In the Withers, he earned a 94 buyer, and prior to that, he had 2 maiden races, one won with an 83 buyer, and that was a 7 furlong race on a muddy track at Aqueduct. Now, we haven't seen him since the Withers. He's by Practical Joke, and Practical Joke is really not known for giving us Kentucky Derby horses, those that can get the distance. But remember, this horse went from 7 furlongs to 1 1/8 and won, so you have to pay attention to him. Where will he show up next? Most likely, the Wood Memorial. That's my 10+1 list of Kentucky Derby contenders right now because we do have the 100-point races coming up. Now I want to hear from you. Who do you like that didn't make it on my list? Or who do you like that did make it on my list? Drop me a comment below. Can't wait for the 151st running of the Kentucky Derby. I hope we all sashay away with our money. Until next time, cheers.